business perspective, understanding just the cannabis industry, there is a system, there's an ecosystem, there's a wheelhouse of all this, how the stuff stays connected. So as you can see, we are going to be discussing today the cultivation. Let's talk cannabis cultivation as a business. What does it mean? Some of those licenses that are out there, the most precious ones, the ones that have the most value are the cultivation. And we have an awesome guest for you today. We're going to be going in depth. I want to welcome, first and foremost, my co-host, Eric Range.
What's going on, sister? How are you?
I'm great.
Good. Hey, everybody out there who's tuning in, again, thank you every week for taking time out to come and join us and learn a little bit and share your insight through the question and comments. We encourage you to join this conversation with us. We do have a great lineup of guests today for you guys. We did put out that we were going to have Kaya Holdings on today, but unfortunately, with some scheduling issues on that, we're going to hold them off until next week. And Kaya Holdings is, they tout themselves as being the first publicly reporting vertically integrated business here in the U.S. Seed to sale, basically, and they're trading, and their ticker symbol is KAYS. If you want to go check them out, we'll have them on next week. They're going to even, do some cool little demos and talk to you a little bit about the ecosystem of even the plant itself. But today we're going to get into, some of the cultivation. And again, when we think about touching plant, the first thing most people think about is touching, doing the cultivation side. Everybody wants to grow. And I always tell people all the time, listen, if you've never grown a tomato in your life, you gotta educate yourself before you get out there and think that you can grow cannabis. And so I think our guests today are going to be able to help you understand some of the ins and outs of not even just the cultivation side, but, as we talk about this ecosystem, there's so many different businesses that exist even in the cultivation side of it. And one of our guests on here, and Roz, I'll let you introduce them, but Plant Life Nutrients, we're talking about how do we feed the plants? We all know that what we put inside our bodies, dictates how well we grow and how, healthy we are. So the same holds true for plants. And so, Roz, if you want to introduce our guests.
Absolutely. So we have another gentleman that should be coming on. His name is Anthony Novak. He's has been the past master grower and cultivation director for Passport Cannabis, Freedom Road Cannabis, which is out of Trinidad, Colorado, and High Sierra Naturals. And so he did send us a little, hey, I'm coming. So in the meantime, though, as we're talking about just the lifespan of just understanding cultivation and all the nuances, I have another set of guests on, and I'm so happy to have them. I have Mr. David Ellerstein and Scott Doggett with Plant Life Company. And guys, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do and who you are, and a little bit about your company.
Go ahead, David.
You want me to go first, Scott?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, everybody. David Ellerstein, Plant Life Company. A little bit about me. I am really just an entrepreneur. Been on my own since 1993, 1995. Looking at businesses, taking niche marketplaces, seeing how effective they are, what's working, what's not working in the marketplace, and then see
a little bit about your company.
Excuse me?
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
And then seeing what we can do to improve upon them. So, my real background was, telecommunications, communications, processing, payments, et cetera, and technology. However, I entered the cannabis space back in 2014. This is, entering my 6th year now. And that was on the compliance side, which, speaking of, just touching on compliance, regardless of where you're entering, really any business, but certainly the scrutinized industry of cannabis, everything starts with compliance. No matter where you are, just do it right. So somebody's looking to see where you're going to do it wrong. So make sure you do it right. That being said, Scott and I met, Scott Doggett, my partner, we met just about 2 years ago. Plant Life as a company, predecessor, which was Scott's company, he's been doing, and he'll talk about it, but since 2012. So we've been in the nutrient business, cannabis specific, for quite some time. Actually won a High Times Award of Best New Product of the Year back in 2012. So, a little bit of spraining my arm, giving ourselves an accolade there. So what we've done, and then Scott will speak to the longer history since it's his family history. But what we've done is just look at what everybody else is doing in the marketplace. And I don't want to say necessarily me too, because there's a lot of great products out there and they're fine products out there. But, we went into the lab with our manufacturing partners and just came up with, rather than 50 SKUs, here are these 10, 11, 12 products that you need to run your business in a very efficient manner, to make sure that there's consistency across what you are doing. Whereas, I'm never worried when the master grower is doing anything, but when that second and third shift comes in, or just whatever the variables are. And so we try to define our product with a philosophy around health, plant health, everything being preventative, everything being curative. That was the basis of where we were building this business, is to bring, to the best of our ability, a better product to the industry that was priced at a very fair value, rather than, call it get rich quick, get rich off one product. It's a fair product for us. It's good for us, but it's great for the customer. And that was kind of the philosophy of how we launched this. And to date, I'll say all of our customers that we have, they echo those same sentiments and agree that we've been able to achieve our goals thus far.
Awesome. Scott, tell us about yourself. And this is family right here, this your company and what you do. And as we talk about how it intersects with the cultivation, the business of cultivation, tell us your story and about the company.
Well, the Doggett in fertilizer goes way back. My grandfather started the Doggett File Company in Springfield, New Jersey in 1926. And his sons ended up working there, my dad ended up, the company was bought by Fison's in England and yada, yada, yada. Ended up my dad finally buying it and making it just the Doggett Corporation. It's been, it's where I did all my summer jobs, when I was in grade school. Like every summer I'd be out there like bagging fertilizer and making stuff on the assembly line. But anyway, they've been in this space for a long, long time and, helped develop and get Miracle Grow off the ground back in the early 60s, I believe it was. And they've been at it for a long time on both the national and international level. I started off, like I said, just working in the mill and driving forklift trucks and stacking pallets and moved on to the office for a while and did payroll and all that and took some trips, some fun business trips. And my career sort of led me into marketing and advertising. And I'm still doing advertising for the Doggett Corporation to this day. But around 2010, 2011, started looking at this space. It's, sort of my unfair advantage is that I do have a company that manufactures fertilizer. I thought, well, why not utilize that advantage? And started looking around at the marketplace and just saw so much redundancy in the nutrient space and also so much ideology and not a lot of botany.
Okay.
And it seemed overly complicated. So my initial go with this was creating a product called Growology. And we were just trying to really simplify the process and not have everybody instead of buying 20 products to get your grow done, I was trying to get it down to 3.
Okay.
And it was effective and it was good. Marketing was hard and I was going to the grow shops themselves and there's just a ton of redundancy on the shelves and a lot of the shop owners aren't looking to add more fertilizer to their shelves. So I wanted to move into more of a business to business model. And that's where I met David. And it was sort of a nice harmonic convergence that we found ourselves when we did. And as David said, that's sort of our model right now is creating a line of nutrients that's it's basically preventative. It's not curative and
sure.
Healthy plants. And you start off with healthy plants and you got a great head start.
Sure. So when we think about, I guess what legal is, so when did you start looking at you have an ancillary product that can help those folks that want to be in the cultivation industry of cannabis. When did you start figuring out that I'm going to take what we already do well and then translate that over to cannabis? Was it, what year was that? And did it start with the small, was it in California? Was it, was it the legalized state, or who were your initial customers when you first started?
Definitely selling in states that had medical marijuana programs. When we started, I don't think anyone had a recreational. So just tailoring to those guys, we really started off online. My first partner was also a copywriter, a successful marketing guy. And so we were just selling online and hitting the trade shows. I mean, we're a New England company. So we were selling, I think we probably ended up selling products in about 38 states. So even at that point, you know, I think we went beyond some of the legal states, but people were, you know, eager to try this stuff out at a small level. But in general, we were going out there and marketing to the states that had programs and you know, picking up slowly but surely, just picking up a customer base.
Absolutely.
You know, if I can, you know, add on to that in terms of, you know, we say all the time that for folks who are looking to get into the cannabis industry, there are a lot of minority businesses out there that are already, you know, they have a product that makes sense for this industry. And, you know, much like you found with yourself, like you said, it was an advantage that you found that, you know, we're growing plants, they need fertilizer. I make fertilizer. Why not look at how I can serve this industry? And so, you know, talk about a little bit, you know, from your standpoint. And, you know, obviously when you get into a good groove in the business and it's working, you know, you don't always want to turn your attention away from what works. But, you know, talk about what that was, you know, what were some of the initial steps you took to educate yourself about the industry, about the other products, and about how you were going to carve out a niche for yourself?
It was basically going out into the grow shops and talking. The grow shops are kind of the water cooler of this industry, I found, and trying to find out what people are recommending, what's out there. I mean, as far as cultivation of cannabis, there couldn't be a more diverse group of people with diverse ideas on how to do it. And there's really no like set in stone way to do this stuff. Everyone's got their own voodoo that they do, you know. But in looking at all the different products, you know, I guess it was, you just see everybody taking of the basic, you know, fertilizer NPK, right? Your nitrogen, phosphates, and potash, and then the micros that go with it. Everyone was kind of breaking out a standard nutrient and selling it individually. And it's, and really, it just seems so expensive and so unfair to the guy that's trying to get out there and just get started. I mean, people have spent a lot of money on their nutrient regimen, and it didn't seem to be, it didn't seem to me that it had to be that way. And, you know, it's just, so it was really just going out to the shops, looking at a lot of labels, going on websites, looking at what they're doing, looking at what their grow regimens are. And the grow regimens, you know, they make these graphic grow regimens, and some of them look like the back of like a 1967 Grateful Dead album. These incredible spirals and this week and that week. And it just, you know, again, just it seemed to me that so much stuff was based on, the industry was based on kind of, you know, that sort of psychedelic poster and, you know, caterpillars on mushrooms and sort of, you know, again, that sort of Grateful Dead sort of way of growing things. And it seemed like science was not really a part of the picture at all. So in doing the research and seeing the way people are marketing things, it was really just going out in the field, and not so much the field, like to talk so much to growers, but again, using the grow shops as sort of my source of information to find out what growers were doing. It was kind of a shortcut as opposed to, and 6 years ago, it was so much more clandestine than it is now. I mean, nobody wanted our first labels for Growology. I think we might have been the first guys in the country. We said on the label for cannabis growers, and so many shops were like, "Oh no, I'm not putting that on my shelf." You know, so I mean, the compliance thing then was, you know, it was really, we thought, well, we're just going to say what we want to say.
Right.
You know, we're just going to be honest. And if you're listening out there, you know, and I hope that, again, the message is clear. The industry needs businesses and services that exist in other industries to serve this industry, if that makes sense. You know, Scott and David and these guys, they have skill sets that they brought from other industries that they apply to this industry. And they found that the level of professionalism of the other comparable products just wasn't there. And so they were able to carve out this niche for themselves in terms of presenting a science-based, you know, product, a professional, very clean, you know, image, straightforward, telling you exactly what this product and this, you know, this nutrient is for. So in finding ways to innovate and to simplify the process, those are the types of things that I think are important when we think about the larger ecosystem of the cannabis industry. You know, when people are thinking about whether or not I should get into the industry or whether or not I have something to offer, I'm not saying that you necessarily need to start a completely new business with a skill set that you don't have. You have a service, you have a skill that, it may not become your number one product or revenue stream, but it may be something that can add a new revenue stream to your business.
Absolutely. So let's talk about this. So the goal of this talk today was all about cannabis cultivation as a business. And so there is a part of the ones of the consultants, the actual master growers, the directors of cultivation. That would be your clients. So, right, Scott and David, your clients are these horticulturists. Do you have to be a horticulturist to be able to own a cultivation business? So the first thing I have up here, if you guys see the screen, is apply for a license. And with applying for a license, you got to have a cultivation team. Who are some of the people that you run into that consist of a cultivation team? Is it scientists? Are these just people that just like to grow plants? What do they look like, David?
Yeah, so it's interesting to dovetail off of one of your questions, both Eric and Scott's input. It really comes down to innovation and evolution. And that's what's happened here. It's come from the point where it was this, Scott said Grateful Dead, but where maybe a tapestry derived, you walk in and you have that cool aura, which is great. Look, it's all part of the history of everything, but it's really gone from where it was that home grow, and not that there's anything wrong with it. Look, there's going to be a marketplace and a segment for that home grower, just like your micro brewery, but it went from that back room to now the laboratory. When this became legal and it became, call it, first world, no longer clandestine, where you have now, the guys, the lab guys, the guys in the white jackets that said, hey, you know what, there's a real business here. There's a science here. And even as good as the product is today, and we have these conversations all the time, that as good as where everything is today, that it'll be amazing to see where is this in 5 years, even with, our fertilizers, which have been used for all of time. I mean, it's the same 17 elements. You get your hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen for free, but it's the same 17 elements that grow cannabis, that grow any other, green plant on this earth. And so it's people started to put together when they realized, the one thing that always gets everybody going is that, wow, there could be really some money made here. And now it can be done, in a very legal fashion. So when you're talking about what does it take, it really takes putting together that A team. So you're going to have your business guy that comes on, whether it's a CPA background or he's an entrepreneur or what have you. But then as part of that team, and it was very obvious, I just attended the Indo Expo in Denver, which was very different than the MJ BizCon in November. And well, by different, what I mean is at MJ BizCon, you just saw, I will say me too, there were 20, 25 nutrient companies there, won't name any, but they all basically had your same macro products with your line of your supplement nutrients. Well, at Indo Expo, there was 50 companies there, and they all had, their own kind of little, call it special sauce. And all of them were very interesting. They were intriguing, but it was a different way of growing. It was, a real scientific methodology. And it'll be interesting to see who's there next year and the year after versus who is there now. I could roll my dice or my crystal ball and tell you who I think would be or wouldn't be just by guessing, even on the professionalism, on what the discussions we were able to have. But to Roz, to your point, it's going to take, you need to have, does it have to be a PhD? No, but that is going to be where it goes. That person on your team, your back office, your chemists, your scientists, they're the ones that are going to be doing the testing. They're going to be the ones that are going to be able to determine, as you're putting together, the 4, 5, 6 nutrients you need over that 12 weeks, average 12-week cycle.
Sure.
They're going to lock up, which ones are going to work well together, which ones are going to achieve ultimate benefit. Because the idea is, in starting with plant health, everybody wants an ROI, a return on their investment. And what that means is you need greater yields. That is number one. People like the potency, but people like the greater yields. And if you can increase yields, and you can even have, potentially by increasing yield, you can even have more harvests in a year. The more times that you can cut down a plant and get that to market, the more money you're going to make. And that really is all part of the science, is making that happen. And again,
which goes back to the nutrients, right? So the science goes into the nutrients of the plant, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. It's
and I think what he's saying as well is the business as well.
Correct. And it starts, from, they say seed to sale on the business side of this, but it really starts with, the seed, or a lot of people just start with the clone rather than waiting for the seed. But you start with the healthier clone is going to lead to the healthier plant that goes into veg and then goes into flower and bloom, and every step along the way. And one thing about this industry, even unlike other horticultural industries, there is somebody watching these plants every single day. If they are walking up and down looking at the health of their plants. And I'm not so sure necessarily that would happen in the produce world quite as much as it happens in this world. But probably also there's a little bit of a different passion to this industry.
Right.
Something where, and everybody on this call, everybody puts in 25 hours a day. It's how often it works, but that's because it's a passion. It's exciting. We say that this industry is, or I say, but it's said, it's the automobile industry of 1900. It's the computer industry of 1980. It's one of those once in a lifetime periods where between cannabis and hemp, people are getting involved, but it's work has become your hobby. And when it's your hobby, it becomes more passionate. And that's where the intrigue is. And it's going to be infinite learning. I mean, as much as you read, it's never going to stop. And again, that adds to the passion. I know I went a little bit on a tangent.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because it really talks about what the breadth and depth of this is not just like a simple, hey, let's throw some seeds in the ground and watch what happens. There is, I want everyone that's listening to me, I have a couple of slides with some information up that talks about the starting point is building your team from a cultivation standpoint. Your team consists of doctors, engineers, horticulturists, administrators, your operation administrators, scientists. Then you have someone that maybe have experience in master growing who's walking up and down that line and watching those plants. When you say increase, you're looking to increase your greater yield. In layman's terms, what that means when you say greater yield, David or Scott?
A greater yield is basically at the end of the day what you're harvesting, what you're pulling, what you're taking off the plant, what you could then take to market and sell.
Right. Okay. So again, when you have someone that comes on, they bring on a director of cultivation that says, I can increase your yield by 50%. That then goes into the financials, because now you're being able to have someone that can say, because of my scientific way that I grow, maybe because of the nutrient that I get from Plant Life Company, that's plantlifecompany.com, depends on what it is. It could mean that you have a 50% growth in your yield, which means the revenue that comes back into the business is 50% more than what you may have forecasted. So those are some of the critical elements of when, again, having a strong team. The financial metrics, and Eric can talk about this, financially, what does it take to get into the industry from a cultivation standpoint is expensive. We're seeing this in Africa. We're seeing this in the Caribbean. We're seeing this, of course, in the US, that not only are you looking at the infrastructure investment, all of the things that you need in regards to being able to start your grow, you're having folks that want you, before you get a license, they want proof of capitalization. They want to make sure that you have the money to do what you say you can do. And rarely does a grow start under $250,000. Eric, I don't know if you want to share from just a perspective outside of the US. I mean, we're seeing the same thing in regards to capitalization. How much do you need in order to capitalize a potential cultivation business here, in the US or even outside of the US?
Yeah, and to be honest, that question can be answered in so many different ways, because it also depends on what the project is, if you will. Are you only growing for, clones, or only growing for seeds, and then, selling the genetics, if you will? Or are you, actually growing for the sake of, CBD, to be able to extract CBD? Do you have, a full spectrum plant? Do you have THC? What type of end products are you going to be using? That all, plays into exactly what you're talking about. Obviously, if you're, looking at setting up these operations, you have to look at the cost of your real estate, and that typically is either you have to purchase that building or land, or you have to have a landlord who's going to allow you to use his facility for a grow operation, which means they're going to want more money because they know what you're doing and they know that they're taking a risk. So you have to consider those. You have to consider your power cost alone, just in setting up the grow operations, from, the lights and all of those things. It's a lot of money. And we say that to help people understand that, depending on whether you're setting up a small grow or a large grow, if you're doing this for a commercial retail, from a commercial and retail standpoint, you're going to have a lot of, time on your hands, if not capital, in order to do the research ahead of time to get yourself in position to go to an investor and ask for, $250K, ask for, 100 million, depending on what your project is. It takes time even to gain the knowledge necessary to build those type of, business plans and proposals. And so, when David talks about we put in 25 hours, I mean, it's real. My days run together so much at this point that you have to, if you want to be able to, operate a very successful operation. And, capital isn't just in, financial resources. Capital is time, because the time that you are spending researching, learning, going to conferences, networking, meeting people, there's an opportunity cost there that, you could be on someone's 9-to-5 job, getting a paycheck and getting health benefits, But again, we want people to understand that. But I think more importantly, with our two guests here today, that I hope folks understand, some of you guys have businesses already where you don't need a huge capital infusion, to be able to turn your attention to this industry. Scott, talk a little bit about that. When you guys said, listen, the cannabis industry, they need, nutrients, they need, soil, they need our products. How much, did it take a large sum of money for you guys to be able to turn your attention to the industry? Or, were you guys already kind of primed for that?
We definitely were not primed for that. We saw the opportunity. And again, I guess the unfair advantage that I had is that I had a family business that made fertilizer. So if I ordered a ton of my step 2 or step 3, it was family. I didn't have to, deliver 100% on that invoice right away. I could sort of let it float a little bit, which I most certainly did. But also, I mean, it was, we were sort of that, that blind naivete that went into it also. I mean, it takes a lot to do this stuff. It takes a lot of time. I was sort of trying to do my old job and this new job at the same time, thinking it would be really easy. This will turn over so fast, such a great product. Nothing's going to turn over fast.
Right.
Well, this whole industry, I mean, here we are, we're trying to sell nutrients. People want to try them. It's not like, hey, what do you think of this pen? Oh, it writes great. I'll take 1,000 of them. It's like they take your fertilizer and then 4 months later, they get back to you, hopefully, with whether or not it was a successful grow or not for them. So basically, David and I have spent the last year in Trialville and trying to set things up. So nothing's going to happen fast. And also the margins, I think people getting in this industry 5 years ago, you could spend 15, 20 grand on setting up your grow, and it'd pay off pretty fast because the product was getting a lot of money. Marijuana wholesale now per pound, it's gone from like $3,500 to $5,000 to like $750 to $900 for a pound wholesale. So people aren't making up their investment as fast as they were out of the gates. And, the more marijuana there is, the cheaper it's going to, the cheaper the profits, or the less it's going to sell for.
So we got a question out here, and someone wants to know, how can I become a grower and have more, intentionality in pursuing this? And so one of the questions that, to answer that question, one thing that M4M is all about, and this is why we have Scott and David on, we're about partnerships. We're about working with folks that are in this industry that they're getting it right. They either got it right or getting it right, or they're lending their service and their time, their talent to help us be able to spread the word. And Oaksterdam University is one of our corporate partners, and we're actually doing a boot camp, a licensing boot camp. So if you're in Missouri, please make sure you go to Oaksterdam University. /Missouri Boot Camp. You can go to our Facebook page. We're doing a kickoff event because we're going to talk about the licensing process from cultivation to dispensing, processing, manufacturing. So to answer that question, Oaksterdam has a horticulture class. It's an in-person class as well as an online class. And we're going to be offering scholarships and discounts for folks. So if you're interested in learning from an educational standpoint, that's a educational a staple in the industry where I trust the information they're going to share, because you have to be careful of information that's out there and knowing it's coming from a good place with people who have had successes after they get their certificate. They're able to go into the marketplace. The other thing is once you get your certificate, you get your education, come back to M4MM. Let us help you connect you with an apprenticeship or an internship program in order to get your hands on. So you may say, I want to cultivate one day and have my own business. But in the meantime, let's get you connected with folks that are doing it and they're doing a good job. And they're asking us and they're saying, listen, we will offer internships. So I want to make sure I address that question right quick as we continue going forward.
And Roz, could I chime in quite quickly? So you're talking
Absolutely.
to somebody that's thinking about getting into growing. This is David. So something else to that really you have to think about, and I mentioned early on the call, about compliance. And by compliance, again, making sure that you're doing it right. And so if you're going to get into growing, understand that when the products you're using, whether it's ours or anybody's product, you want to make sure that that company, they themselves have gone through all of the proper channels that they needed to. And by what I mean there is that that product is registered within your state. There's all sorts of government regulatory authorities. And I always say it's a little bit, a little bit more discriminated than any other industry. And I do believe that. But, they're looking to say, okay, who's going to try and cut corners? Who's going to try and not do right? And we have to make sure that we're always doing things right. We want to say, no, you know what? This is a legally run, operation, just like any other business. We pay our taxes, we run it. There's some, unfair challenges with taxes. But my point is, make sure that the products are registered with the appropriate state. Make sure that they're lab tested so that the heavy metal levels are below whatever the state thresholds are. That you don't have pesticide and fungicide. That you're pesticide and fungicide free. That you have salmonella and fecal matter free. These are all things that when because people will come by. There was a farm in Santa Barbara just got raided yesterday and had 1,400 pounds confiscated and 22,000 plants because they didn't follow the rules. And so it's just a cautionary tale to make sure that every step of the way, but again, your nutrients, and especially, if you're using, and we're not because we're preventative, but if pesticides and fungicides are the big no-nos in this industry, especially when it comes to the fact that this is ingested, it's consumed in the body.
Right.
You want to make sure that you ask these questions. They're in this space, there are no dumb questions. It's like school. Make sure you ask, make sure you're doing anything right, because as Eric said earlier, and Roz mentioned, not only is an investment in money, and it's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be more than that $250,000 or $300,000. And so if you're going to try to do it on the cheap, it might not be the industry for you. But the sweat equity that you're going to put into this is going to be more than you can possibly imagine, and the fruits of your labor are absolutely going to be seen. You don't want to be, and the stories, people should be writing books on this, of companies that were making tens of millions that now are worth zero because they didn't do things right. They tried to get corners. One of my favorite hashtags, and maybe it's mine, hashtag greed kills. It's the type of thing where just make sure that you are doing things, all above board all the time.
Absolutely. So going into our conversation about the cultivation, so there is building a cultivation plan, and there's actually a plan in regards to cultivation, and there's a variation of things that happen within that plan. You can go everything from, there's a checklist, but your overview, your detailed plan has different stages. And it starts with, and if you guys can see the screen, you have breeding, cloning, your vegetation, your flowering. When it's time to harvest and dry your plant, your trimming, your curing, your packaging, and your distribution. all these pieces, like, so if you go in, if you think you're ready to go after cultivation license, guys, these are the pieces and the questions that are in the application process that they're asking you for this. They're going to want to know, what is your plan? What are you doing? They're going to ask you in regards to your nutrients. They're going to ask you in regards to your lighting. How are you're watering? They're going to want to know your financials. So Scott and David, when you guys are you're one piece to the plan for a cultivator, since you've got, the business going into the cannabis side, are you seeing folks bring you in early on when they're going after a license, or do you form your relationship with folks after they have their license? Where are you seeing, and how as a ancillary business, how are you able to help them maybe go through the pitfalls of making sure that you help folks understand how to increase their yield, or how to make sure that they start out with a really strong plan?
I'll speak. Yeah. So it's a little bit of both, Roz. And it's funny because, and not funny, haha, because people are resistant to change, and it's just, human nature really. And one of the things I always talk about, but for change, one, we wouldn't be having this podcast because we wouldn't be using our computers or our cell phones to have a call with technology advancement. But for change, none of us would be in the cannabis industry. So don't be afraid of change, because that's just evolution. And that's how we advance the science. That's how we advance the industry. That's how, the business just gets better and better all the time. With respect to when are we brought into the process, it depends. And because of change, or you know what, there's a lot of good products out there. And so, you can shop at Macy's or you can shop at Gimbel's. Gimbel's doesn't exist anymore, but I like Miracle on 30.
You date yourself, brother. You date yourself.
I know. Well, I'm old, but I look good for being old. And so if somebody is an established business that is multi-state, they may not bring us in so early unless they are already a client of ours. But certainly, and then if they're not, if they're a new licensee, then yes, they'll talk to us because of the things that we stated earlier about, we take compliance seriously. We take our product seriously. We have 160 years of combined experience. We have no hazardous elements or materials in any of our products. And these are all things that are very important. And then when you put that on the application, they say, okay, we know that this is a serious candidate, to make sure that they are going to be somebody that, we don't have to keep an eye on at all times. I mean, trust me, they keep an eye on everybody all the time. But I'm just saying, they believe that, having a little trust in human nature, that you've put together a good team, you put together a good product, you're using, the proper, a solid greenhouse, your soil is good, your nutrients are good, you have that PhD on staff that is going to run, a master cultivation. So so like I said, it's kind of, and it depends as to when we get brought in, but certainly whether it's us or somebody else, you're bringing in somebody that at least can speak, talk the talk and walk the walk with the story behind them. So people at least know that when you have to have that phone call, when you say, hey, you know what, this might be beyond the depth of David, which doesn't take much, that we bring on, the backroom scientist that
right.
can speak to, how does that molecular and cellular technology, or growth, how does that really take place? What is the real science? And so, that is what we try to bring to the table.
Absolutely. Hey, Scott, have you ever worked with any of the cultivation consultants out here? And how do you know if you get a good one? Let's think about the states who do not have a legal program right now, medical or adult use. It's Georgia, it's North Carolina, it's South Carolina, it's Texas. Gosh, there's a couple more, but there's some major states that do not have. There's no legalization right now. And we have a lot of people that listen to us and they go, okay, I want to cultivate. I want to start my cultivation business. And they may have the operational side, but they want to hire a cultivation consultant. Have you guys, Scott, have you worked with some, and how do you know the good actors versus the bad actors in that space?
It's hard to say. I mean, have we worked with a lot of consultants? No,
Yeah.
We're talking more with just the people everyone that grows is kind of a cultivation consultant, it seems to me.
Sure.
To the point earlier where everyone's got their way of doing things. I mean, generally, there's a good way to grow cannabis, and the nutrients are the nutrients, and the nutrients can impact your grow anywhere from probably 20 to 40%. But in general, this is a plant, it just needs the basics, and then anything you can add to it, which is what, people who are in this industry or nutrient industry are doing, trying to fine tune that as best they can so they can really enhance these plants and bring them to their maximum potential. But as far as talking to cultivators, again, I just think the people that have grows, they're I've never talked to a consultant as like a guy that has hung a shingle as a consultant. I haven't talked to those. Have you, David?
If I could dovetail off that a little bit, and because M for MM surpasses me in my LinkedIn abilities, and I think I'm pretty savvy at that stuff.
That's you, Eric.
Yeah, there are. What I can say is there are plenty. That's a relative word, but there are a number of consultants out there that really can lend some experience to this. And, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to insult somebody, but you can see not just on their resume on LinkedIn, because certainly you can fluff your resume if you want to, but there are people out there. You want to know, who are their clients? You want to have your science people, if you have them, you get on the phone and you have that horticultural botany discussion. You talk about what is important to the plant, if that's the part of the business that we're talking about. And you certainly can go through and find I won't name here, but there are plenty of, and somebody wants to shoot Roz or Eric a message after this, or me a message, I certainly can point anybody in the direction of people that I believe are, they're very astute in what they've done. University of Arizona horticultural department, let's see if they have a degree, and not that that's necessary, because School of Hard Knocks is one of the better schools out there, but there are a lot of fine ag schools out there. And if somebody's graduated with an agricultural degree, and then you have a conversation, you can tell pretty quickly if you think somebody's pretty sharp and they have an understanding. Quite frankly, our manufacturing partners who, Doggett is one of them, Scott's family. The guys on their team, they really understand, hey, these ingredients aren't going to act well together, or these ingredients will act actually a little bit better. So we try to optimize everything we do. We're doing that with one of our new products right now, where one of our competition throws in 14 of one ingredient, and our scientists 8 of them are ineffective. So yeah, we can throw them in there, but they're not doing anything for the plant. So let's optimize this. And that way we can save on costs for us, which means we can save on costs for the end user, because, that's the principle we run our business. It's like I said earlier, it's not get rich quick. It's make it good for us and great for the consumer. And we really live by those values.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Roz, what I would say to any of our listeners who are considering consultants and working with folks, folks have many different skill sets, and they have many different, connections that they can bring to bear. What I would say is, when you're dealing with your consultant, start small, start very specific and focused, have them work on a single project, see can they deliver, and then determine whether or not you bring them on in a larger scale for, a larger capacity. But, test them out, and work out a payment arrangement that allows you to not have to pay in full if you don't get what it is that you intended to get. But that has to be spelled out. You have to be very clear. The scope of work has to be very clear on what it is they're doing, and the payment structure has to be done. And I recommend, again, I'm always a big component of, if you're going to get into this very seriously, you also need to have someone that you can go to for legal advice. Right. There's a lot of, people will get on a phone call and throw out numbers and conversations very quickly and easy. But the devil is always in the details. And so when you need someone, to really hammer out those details and make sure that you're not getting screwed in a deal, you have to get an attorney, folks. You may spend some money up front, but the headache that it will save you on the back end, I think it is just absolutely invaluable. So definitely consider. And there are tons of people. And again, even with attorneys, attorneys are typically very specialized. So, find someone, they don't necessarily have to be in the cannabis space, but they understand business transactional law, or they understand, working with, on contracts and setting up, partnerships and those kind of deals. You want to make sure you have somebody who understands exactly what it is that you're trying to set up so that you can protect yourself. That's very important.
And if I could just add one really quick comment to what Eric said, because there was so much wisdom in what he just said, and this will hold true. It has for all of time. But seriously, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Make that investment, that attorney, that small amount, and it could be $2,000 to $5,000, whatever that number is. That's going to save you a lot of those headaches. And it's kind of like you never ask a surgeon if you need an operation because they only make money by, operating. But yeah, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So just don't think, well, I'm going to just make money because this guy, sounds professional and he can talk the talk. Just like I said, don't be afraid to ask questions. You're not going to insult anybody. You're being smart.
Absolutely. Very, very smart. I had a question that came through, and then Eric, if you have any questions on your side or any feedback, let me know. But we had a question that came through about Oaksterdam University.
Real quick before go ahead, say that, and then I'll follow up. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's different schools out there. So from an educational standpoint, so you have College 420 and other different schools that are there. I tend to, and I'm not going to apologize, when I have folks that come and want to work with M4MM, you guys know I'm the founder and the CEO of the organization. It is my baby. It is our gift. It's a gift that keeps on giving to everyone. It's not mine. It's all of ours, that we are embracing the power of working together. And those people that come and bless M4MM and work with us and help us to be able to educate and outreach and just to create opportunity for everyone and not just for a certain segment of the population. Well, Oaksterdam has done that, not only from let's talk about it, but they put their money where their mouth is. They're putting resources. So I wanted to spend a few minutes and just talk about Oaksterdam and let you see as you see my screen, how they have a horticulture class. And again, you learn to grow from seed to harvest. Hands-on education, cultivation law, cultivation lab. So every class is accompanied by a hands-on lab with live cannabis plants and various types of cultivation equipment. Seed to harvest, build and optimize, Q&A troubleshooting. So I know for sure they have an online piece, but they also have, if you're Oaksterdam is based in Oakland, California, but they have a weekend program where you go and it's like a 4-day intensive training that you're there in Oakland. We're going to be scholarshiping some folks. So if you hear my voice and you're like, listen, Roz, I'm really interested, you can go to m4mmunited@gmail and send us that's our email address, and put in there Oaksterdam scholarship. And let us see how we can help you get there so that you can have hands-on, even if you're not going to cultivate and you want to be in the industry and you're going to have some type of business that surrounds the industry, to be able to understand the premise of the industry starts with the plant. It starts with folks like David and Scott talking about the nutrition of the plant. Yeah. And I haven't even gone through this particular training, and I want to, because I need to be able to, as much as I'm talking about it from a kind of esoteric area, I need to be more specific. I need to understand the breadth and depth of what happens from a cultivation standpoint. So I want to make sure I share that. m4mmunited@gmail.com. Email us, put us in the subject line, Oaksterdam scholarship. We'll get back with you. We'll try to understand what your needs are and see if we can help you get there.
And we're not just doing it there with, Oaksterdam, again, huge shout out to them. I'm right along with Roz. We love the folks who support what we're doing and they see the larger vision, and it's not just a one-off thing. They're tied into, they're bought into, what it is that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. But we're also doing that if you're in the Boston area, the New England area. Yeah. We're working with Elevate New England, and they're putting on a 5-week course for cultivation. And you meet every Saturday morning, and, you can sign up for that as well. So you can connect with us on our website. We are making sure that around the country, folks are getting the training, the certifications that they need to get into the industry. But also understand this, guys, and this, I want to make sure that folks are very clear about this industry. Not everybody's going to get a license. Not everybody's going to get going to be a grower or a cultivator and have your own business. And we definitely have to start businesses, but we also have to make sure that we're integrating into the mainstream businesses as well. And they have jobs, they are offering internships, and we need to be a part of that movement as well. And so by becoming a member of InfraMM, when we have license holders in states that we work with, we can then set up a pipeline for employment for our members to get into those jobs as well. So for the individuals who are asking about how do I become a grower, you know, for some of you guys, you're going to go to this Oaksterdam course or, you know, to some other course, you get your credentials and you're going to go out and you're going to start your business. You're going to go after a license and that's going to be great. But for some of you guys, it's going to be, you know, you're attaching yourself to a team that's going after a license, or you're going to work for someone who has already gotten a license, you know, whether it be a multi-state operator or, you know, just operating within your own state or locality. So there's tons of opportunities, but it's about getting yourself educated. And I think, you know, getting credentials like through Oaksterdam and some of the other many that are out there is absolutely important. That's a part of that, you know, that sweat equity that we're talking about. You have to get yourself educated. You have to get the credentials that you need in order to operate into this industry.
Absolutely.
And, you know, they don't make it that easy. You know, I mean, shout out to you guys, shout out to Amsterdam, shout out to Elevate New England. I mean, as long as this is a Schedule I narcotic in the government, it's not like you can go to your community college and take a course on this stuff. No colleges can do anything with this because every college has federal loans and all this stuff. So no one can touch it. I mean, early on when I was trying to get my nutrients tested, you want to go to the University of Rhode Island or go to some place that has a great agricultural program and they can't touch it. So it isn't as easy as you think it would be to find out about this stuff. And, you know, right. Shout out to M4MM and shout out to Amsterdam and those guys for dedicating their time to really giving people an education about this and not just some guy. You know, it is, you know, there's a lot of just guys out there telling you what they know, and there's not, you know, it's really hard to find credibility based on the, you know, the parameters of what surrounds this plant right now in the federal government.
Absolutely. So, so with all that being said, and as we are winding down, I mean, the hour goes by so fast. One of the things that the gist of this conversation is it's a part one to a part two. So the part one is, you know, again, the understanding from the financial aspect, what you have to have prepared and be ready to expect in regards to your plan. We talked about who needs to be on your team. We talked about the financial, like the starting point. So I said 250, and David told me no, 250. Like really, your starting point is what? 1.5, $2 million, $3 million.
All right. So again, it depends. It depends on your state. It depends on your market.
Yeah.
Because we'll offer return on investment. I wouldn't even say it's my best guess because I almost went for a few different licenses with a couple different people. And there's all different spectrum, but I'd say you cannot even, first of all, just filing for licenses, there's plenty of states. I know in Pennsylvania was doing it. What you have to show generally on your books, at least the availability, minimally $1 million.
Right.
So many instances, but I'm gonna say if you're gonna do it right, here's the one thing. It's the type of thing where if you really are going to try and shoestring it, then you're better off partnering with somebody else because there will be more people that fail than succeed. I'd have to say, and this is just a little bit arbitrary, but $3 million minimum to really go in here. If you're going to be vertically integrated, if you're just retail, that's a totally different story. If you're just going to sell, but if you're going to be a vertically integrated.
What about if it's not vertically integrated? What about if you only want to do your own, what about if it's a micro business, 10,000 square feet of a grow or 5,000 square feet? And this is common out in California, especially for equity applicants. They're doing 3,000 square foot grows.
Yeah. So, okay. So if you're going to do a 3,000 square foot grow, then you would need significantly less capital. I couldn't speak to what the licensing expense would be.
Sure.
You're going to have your building. You're going to have your rent. I mean, it depends where you are. California real estate's expensive. You'll have to do your math. But then you also have to make sure, again, depending where you are in California, climate comes into play, whether you're doing an indoor or a greenhouse. I would not suggest a hoop. There's, again, depending where you are, there's just a lot of outside factors. And depending on those outside factors, if you're in an area where somebody else is doing cannabis farming or other type of farming, and they don't incorporate the same good practices and best practices that you do to make sure that you're keeping those, whatever pests outside of your grow environment, well, their pests can get in. There's so many airborne elements to this. So yes, if you're not going to be, like I said, if you're going to own the dispensary, then the cost of the operation as far as establishing your retail operation and then being able to buy your product like any other retail. If you want to do it from grow, look, it's still, you need to put in the proper, again, you don't want to do it on the cheap. So you want to use, whatever your media is, your cocoa, your soil, your peat, whatever that might be.
Right.
Which isn't a great expense, but I'm just saying your fertigation system, whether you're going to use reverse osmosis watering, like the infrastructure can get up there. Would you be able to put a 3,000 square foot grow together for a few $100,000 all in? Probably. With the proper climate control. Yeah, that might be where you could do something. I just spoke to somebody the other day, downtown to LA, 5,000 square foot first floor, 1,500 second floor. He's selling an all in for $399,000 because he and his partner are having issues, which that's HVAC and everything else, but he's not licensed. But he told me, don't worry about it. It's not something I was interested in. But I was saying,
hey, we need to talk. We may have some members out here that may want to take a look at that deal.
Maybe and so again, and on that deal, it's the type of thing that just make sure, because he said it's not licensed, but he said we're in that zone where it's okay. I don't know what that means, but it would be the type of thing that if you really wanted to speak to this guy seriously, and I'm not brokering anything, I'm just putting this out. If you want to speak to him seriously, that's where you, as Eric said, that's where the lawyer comes in to say, you're throwing away $399,000 versus, hey, you know what? There's some wiggle room here and you can buy it and the business look nice, just so you know. Anyway.
So, hey, sidebar, let's talk about that later because there's some things that we might be able to do. So long story short, David is telling you guys in a nutshell, from a vertical integrated model means you do everything from seed to sale, process, manufacturer, dispense. You're looking at $5-10 million north. If you're in some of the states like Colorado, California, Oregon, and honestly, we're going to be talking about micro businesses. Instead of having a large multi-state national operator, you could be a small micro business that actually does, what about craft cannabis? That's going to come and that's going to happen. Right, Scott? Crafting?
It's the only way that the little guy is going to be able to survive.
Yo, absolutely. And that'll be great, too. It'll be really fun. All the craft, cannabis guys making their own products out there. And it'll be, like they early on, they wanted Humboldt County to be like the Napa of California.
Absolutely.
Just to give you an example, though, it's not a sidebar, but it talks about like these kind of micro businesses. There's a friend, buddy, colleague, what have you. In this industry, it's interesting. Everybody kind of becomes your friend, as the relationship evolves. So that makes it a little bit more fun than a lot of other businesses. But he's building a kitchen, and a kitchen is, where you put together all your different types of edibles that you want to create from your extracts. I mean, he's building this kitchen. It's 2,500 square feet. He's putting in $2.5 to $3 million because he has a lab to make sure that they have an internal lab to do their own testing for potency, et cetera. And then they're putting it in there. So it just depends, are you going to be really boutique-y? But there are, not to scare anybody off, there are entry-level steps that you can do but it's maybe 300,000, but 3, 4, 500,000 for something like you're talking about of more of a micro style business.
Right. We'll talk more about this next week. We'll talk about micro business. We'll talk about cannabis consultants. We'll have Kaya Holding on next week. I think I'll have Jamal Hockler back on with us. He's a cannabis consultant. So if you guys are listening to me, if you hear me, you see me, next week, come back on. Let's talk more about this cannabis cultivation conversation. From a policy standpoint, Eric, you know what? You and I need to commit to some of the states that are coming online. Let's introduce the micro business. That crafting, it really got my brain thinking that the crafting of cannabis for the small business owner could be the opportunity that some of our folks are looking and would need to get into the industry. So as you guys can see, our time is up. Here's our contact information. If you want more information about Plant Life Company, it's plantlifecompany.com. It's Scott and David. Send them a message, give them a phone call. if you want to know anything about nutrients and where it comes into the whole cycle of growth for cultivation, these guys, the reason why they're on and why I trust and I support them and I thank them for their support, because they are the real deal. So thank you guys. Thank you, Scott and David. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Roz. Thank you, Eric. Thanks everybody for listening.
Absolutely. Eric, take us away. Take us home, man.
Wow. I mean, it seems like these weeks keep getting shorter and shorter. And it's a great thing because we love to see you guys every Friday. We love to have this conversation with you guys. This has been another amazing week for us. I hope it has been so for you as well. Take this weekend again, get some rest, love on yourself, love on your family, and let's get energized for next week and let's hit the ground running. Until next week, everybody, another episode of Canna Talk with Roz.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.